So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we read it in Yeshayahu the prophet, we begin our quest then layering what this great prophet has mentioned regarding then the autumn feast, and also Daniel the 11th chapter as it was explained yesterday, and also Revelation as it was then mentioned regarding then the Christianity, and then Islam, and then Judaism mixed up together with the Revelation. So then, in order for us to understand these dynamics, let's then read a section of the Revelation, so then we can make it imperative, these understanding, because as far as we can gather from these manuscripts, explains of then the Creator pointing out, for instance, the Ishmaelites regarding then the great day when then the freighters of the earth are then destroyed. We explain also sections regarding then China taking on these first objectives of organizing the world's market for the dependency of the entire structure of this world being dependent upon freighters. What's the objective then of lining up the governments with freighters? We find then in Yeshayahu the 23rd chapter, you find then very precisely the crown given then to the king Ishmael extending, and then the freighters, absolutely the freighters then provoking jealousy amongst the nations for the purposes of simply work. So what is then the objective? As far as we can understand, most of the governments of the world, they are in trouble because they can't manage the countries properly. The Creator has decided ever since Ishmael started with his trading company, he decided from back then, using as an example of a very precise and diligent kind of work. This truly was reflected when was then the time of Joseph, when he was sold into slavery. He ended up in Egypt. He ended up being very prosperous, but he had to wait for a long time. Then later on came then the cities of the Messiah. So then the world was extremely organized as far as trade, because the world had to work. And as such, taxes must be gathered. So the point is not being concerned of governments being led by freighters. The point is taxes must be gathered, and these taxes are evolved with the freighters, because back then did not have this system. Governments had to create money, a means of exchange, and then taxes were gathered in the basis of trust. You had to have a trustworthy person charging taxes. We found out these governments of this world, they can't be trusted with trustable people to gather taxes. A lot of people don't pay taxes. A lot of people, they don't file for taxes. It's some people, they don't give a rat regarding then paying taxes. So the governments, they have to go extra strength or extra length to get their taxes gathered. In this, the Creator has decided, He is then came up with a system of computerized ways of instantly charging taxes. Thus then the freighters, if you do a brief study of what then China is doing with purchases via computers, purchases via telephones, you observe that the objective is gathering taxes. Such we then read from the instructions where then the future level where we read, for instance, the 9th chapter of Revelation, gives you an understanding that we are then in a future where then this system is already implemented. Okay, 8th chapter explains of the explosion of the bombs. But we understand Revelation is not in chronological order. When you understand via the layers, then you understand very simply, very precisely, then you understand the layers the prophets were explaining, and you simply understand the revelation is not in chronological order. Simply because of the fact the layers, understandably, from the prophets does not line up with the chronological order of revelation. So the translator of Revelation, not Yochanan, he wrote in layers and on Megillas, and Galals they became Megillas. Later on, then the Greco-Roman people, they tried to do the translation. However, they did not translate properly. So then, as long as you understand the layers from the prophets, such as Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, and then Daniel, then you yourself, when you begin layering those understandings, then you glance at it, and then you find, boy, the 8th chapter has got nothing to do with later on chapters. Then you have to understand where it goes. So then, explains then as far as Christianity, because these religions, they play a great part in these prophecies. You find then the dynamic of the people related with a mark of the beast. Then you relate then the people, or then the group of people related with the Islamic State. Then you relate the people of Israel in the form of tabernacling of Daniel 11. And also then later on the coming of Jerusalem, not based from Revelation, but based from Ezekiel. And these, then you have to transfer these dynamics to Daniel 11. So as you read Daniel, you understand the layers, you understand Yeshayahu, then you understand Revelation, and then you have to layer these together, so then you have the proper understanding of then what Daniel and Yochanan, they were then referencing themselves with. Later on I'm going to evaluate these more, but then from topic to topic, so we can navigate through these and understand where we are heading towards. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.